Welcome, you sexy, motherly matriarchy. Hello, you beautiful millennials. Welcome back to the Millennial Matriarch Podcast. I am one of your hosts, ATD, Ashlie, and I'm joined here by my gorgeous, sweet, kind, lovely co-host, Alexis.
Hello. We're here. It's Tuesday. Yay.
We're here. We made it. Yeah. Have we made it clear to the listeners that we record on Tuesdays?
Listeners, we record on Tuesdays.
We record on Tuesdays. Not the day before you hear the episode. That would be ridiculous. That would be delusional if we were like, let's record and edit and put it all out on a Wednesday. No, the Tuesday before, people, just to be clear.
It is crazy to think that people record and then put out an episode like immediately after. However, that is what Biggie does with his podcast.
A what?
They do it within 24 hours. Now, they don't edit like you and I. They don't listen to the episode back, not to give out their secrets.
That's wild.
That's what you know what? I know. And maybe I shouldn't give away their trade secrets, but you and I like to, listen, quality control, make sure there's nothing going on weird, wonky.
Yeah, like to be clear, this is a sort of minimal edit podcast. We're not like taking huge chunks out, but like if we have technical difficulties, if our voices overlap, like, we do some rocking and some rolling and
smooth.
some smoothing out. So yeah, and sometimes like we go on for way too long. And we have to respect people's attention span, but yeah, wow, that's reckless. I also think of like there's one in particular I'm thinking of, like a daily podcast, but they have a team that edits for them. So I guess
that'd be a lot on you and I.
But we are the creators, writers, producers, editors, videographers, promoters. We are it.
It's a 2-gal show here.
You're all shocked given the quality. It's just 2 of us. That's crazy. But it is. All right. Well, I'm excited to get into today's topic. It's been on our docket for a while. As you all know, or if you're new, welcome. Alexis and I are blessed with being the eldest daughters in our immediate families. And we're curious about how much of that sort of makes us who we are and kind of like how we exist in the world. So with that in mind, we've kind of gotten to thinking about birth order and how it can impact someone's personality or sense of self. Why are the oldest siblings the designated project manager? Me. Why does the youngest get away with so much? Middle children, are you okay? We're not sure. We wouldn't know. But turns out there was a psychotherapist in the 1920s named Alfred Adler who coined the birth order theory. And this suggests that birth order changes the way a family perceives and treats a child. And then that, in turn, affects their personality development. Now, granted, this is just a theory. It's not scientifically proven, but that's kind of the basis for our episode today, is talking about sort of the roles and sibling order and what traits they have. And I'm curious to see if your experience, Alexis, as an eldest daughter is different than mine. And we're going to talk about, some nuances and obviously, take all of this with a grain of salt, people. It's just a theory, but I find it fascinating. So I'm excited to get into it. My first question for you, Alexis, is what are some personality traits like you think you have because you were born first? Like stereotypically, what do you align with?
Okay, so I'm going to try really hard not to throw this topic on its head, a solid 5 into it, because yes, I am the oldest, but my sister and I are 5.5 years apart. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, we say that she's the younger, oldest child. So I'm not going to get too into that piece of it yet. I will get into it because it is funny, because while I identify with a decent amount of the oldest child's traits and characteristics, the ones that I don't see in myself are like wildly, like I'm like not at all. So I will say I am really good at like figuring things out for myself, right? Because
Mm.
growing up, like if I got a new video game, for example, like I had to figure that out myself because it was just me. Where my sister, you know, could ask me questions, could, kind of like look for advice. Where like, yeah, could I have asked my parents to help me install the new Sims game? Yeah, but I also like, did I want my parents to know that I was playing Sims? Like maybe a little too young? Like, I don't know. That is the trait I think that stands out the most is that
Mhm.
I think that I am very quick to like figure things out myself.
Okay, yeah, self-reliance. That's a big, sort of general trait that falls under the birth order theory for the oldest child.
What would you say yours is?
Well, oldest child is usually coined as like the tiny adult. And so I feel
Yes.
like I resonate with that in general. So traits like responsible, perfectionist, looking after my younger siblings.
You too are also like a lot older than your younger siblings. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll get into this a little later, but like one of the factors that kind of flips this on its head, like Alexis was saying, is age gap. If there's enough of an age gap between, it can change some of these theories. But yeah, I have 7 years between my next sibling and myself. So like I had all those years of
Mhm.
being an only child and being, having those like independent interactions with my parents. And then my sister came along. But if anything for me, it just reinforced the oldest sibling stereotypical stuff, which is like, okay, like there's this parentification that's happening. It just happens naturally. One thing in the theory I thought was interesting was that the exact wording of this trait is that the oldest child can imitate the behavior of their parents in looking after their siblings. And I all of a sudden like flash back to me like disciplining my siblings. Like in the same way that my parents would, like almost mirroring, like, okay, this is the way that they would talk to them to get them to clean their room, to eat their dinner, to take a bath. And like I would use the
Wait,
same, like,
well, you answered my question because I was gonna say, wait, like you currently, like when you have to discipline your siblings now, like you go to them, but no, if you're talking about
oh,
like getting in the
no.
bath, it's like, no, you as a kid.
Yes, yes, sorry. Me as a kid myself, basically seeing what my parents would say and do disciplinary-wise, and then projecting that onto my siblings as well. Or there, in fact, was a lot of responsibility on me to help with the caretaking of my siblings, and so I just said the things I said, and I'm trying to, like, picture, like, my 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old self just, like, saying, like, stuff my parents would say, like, "Hey, if you don't do this, you're gonna be grounded," or blah, blah. It's like, "What?" That makes no sense, but it's true, it happens, and so when I read that, I was like, "Oh, that totally hits the nail on the head for me."
Yeah, I feel like you definitely are a true oldest. Like I actually think that you definitely possess more of the stereotypical like oldest daughter
Yes.
traits where I don't have all of them.
One, like, specific thing I wanted to bring up, because obviously we are women, is the gender layer, the eldest daughter thing, and I didn't actually realize that this was a term, but eldest daughter syndrome
Mhm.
is like a colloquial term that I guess exhibits anxiety, high responsibility, people pleasing behaviors often developed by a firstborn daughter. Obviously, like,
Mhm.
this isn't like a clinical diagnosis, but it describes that parentification I was talking about, or like acting as a caretaker. I think that relates really well to like our mental load episode too. It's like the gender
Totally.
layer. Yeah, you
Oh
can be
yeah.
the oldest child, but there is also a split off between the oldest son and the oldest daughter. I see it in like my husband's family dynamics versus mine. Like there is clearly none of it's bad, none of it's wrong. It's just different. And there
It
is
is
a
different. Yeah.
there is a sense of responsibility that I think is put on the eldest daughter that isn't necessarily put on the eldest son. I'm so curious how you feel about all that, given that you kind of feel like you have maybe not a totally opposite dynamic to your sister, but
Yeah, it's not totally opposite, but I will say that my sister has a lot of the stereotypical oldest child traits. And I actually did some digging into why I think that is, and I'll get to that in a second. But my sister, compared to me, I would say is the easier child. Like she is somebody who
Okay.
like always did well in school, who like was on student council, who played sports. I mean, I even see it now, like in the passing of my mom, like how my sister for Christmas, like has came in and like took over and she was like, I am going to cook this Christmas dinner and like get it done. Here's a another great example. My sister loves to like remind my dad and I about like filing our taxes. Like that is something that like she feels like she needs to, remind us, even though like the fact that, like the tax day is April 14th, April 15th. Either
It's
way,
April 15th, Alexis.
that's
God
right.
damn
I know it's
it.
a hey, I know, but in my mind, I tell myself it's like the day earlier because I'm a last minute Nelly. One thing I looked into was because I have anxiety and depression. That can also be a reason why my sister has a lot more like older child traits because it's like technically like I'm the more emotionally unstable one. Like even in terms
Huh.
of like rebellion, like I wouldn't say that I was a rebellious child, but compared to my sister, I was a much more rebellious child.
Not that any of this needs reason, but like I'm sort of like logically trying to make it make sense. What I didn't do like a ton of or I didn't do any research on is beyond birth order, number of siblings. So I do
Yeah.
wonder, given your age gap and
Yeah,
the
there's only
fact
two
that
of
there
us.
are two of you versus in my insular family there are three
Mm.
with a lot of age gap in between, I wonder if like that kind of yeah, like almost like flipped it on its head. And I will say like because I don't want to leave only children out of the mix either. Only children exhibit hyper independence and like adult like maturity stereotypically according to this theory. And I feel like when you brought up tax day I was like, oh, like yeah, that's either I don't know if that's oldest child coded as much as it is only child coded. So I don't know, maybe there's something to
Interesting.
that.
I am almost 6 years older than my sister. So I, on one side of my family, was the only child, the only grandchild, the only niece, like until my sister
Yeah.
came along. But then once I went away to college, like my sister was the only child in the house, throughout her teenage years. And I think that that played a huge role.
That makes a lot of sense actually.
But some of the other traits that kind of came up that I wanted to like give her like a shout out to, like one of them was hyper responsible. And I do feel like my sister is hyper responsible, achievement driven, very protective, but we are both really
Mm.
protective. I also am trying not to be like super hard on myself, which is funny because that was actually one of the things that it said when I was researching. It was like, oldest siblings who may not, who it might be like a role reversal with their younger sibling, like they feel like guilt. Like it's like I always I
Mm.
even texted my sister today being like, "Wait, you are going to die when like you see like the research I found." And I said to her,
Yeah.
I was like, "Sorry, your older sister is chaotic and emotionally unstable." Like
No, no. But you know what? I wonder if that guilt is like a derivative of the perfectionism. It doesn't, perfectionist doesn't mean like, oh, you are perfect. It just means that like maybe you have this idea of perfection in your head. And if you don't reach it as an oldest child, you might feel shame. You might feel guilt. You might say to your sister, "Oh, I'm sorry that I'm emotionally unstable." Like, like it's that and there's nothing wrong with
that
any
is a
of
good
that, but maybe
point.
that's where it comes from cuz like it comes from a place of like, I have to meet a certain standard. Whether I'm meeting it or not, I acknowledge that it exists. That'll be
There you
$100
go.
for today's therapy session. I'm just kidding.
Oh my god, thank you. Thank you so much.
I thought we could like do a fun little thing as we go through these where we take like a famous family with lots of siblings and we kind of like
Hint
put
hint.
those people in the pockets of which we're going through. So naturally I thought about the Kardashians And just because there's so many of them, maybe before we jump to middle child, we can touch on Kourtney
Yeah,
Kardashian
let's do it.
because I think of
Let's do
her
it.
as well, she is the oldest of the Kardashian siblings. Again, I am an oldest child, Alexis is, so there's no judgment here, but I think like can easily say that Kourtney exhibits a few traits like she's a little controlling. She's very
Mhm.
boundary heavy. She has a
Very boundary heavy.
low tolerance for chaos. Like these are traits that are synonymous with oldest children that sort of apply to her. And I feel like I resonate with all three of those. I
Yeah?
think that it all yeah, I think and I am not a fan of Kourtney. Like she's just not my vibe. But I have respect for those traits because I hold those traits. Yeah, like I kind of want to control the situation. I've sort of like I've been on the come up on like boundaries, not just with my family, but with like life and people and like, you've experienced a lot. You've been around longer than your older siblings, so you sort of have like those boundaries in place. And then yeah, the low tolerance for chaos I think comes from probably specifically for her and for me, like coming from a family with like a lot of people and a lot of kids. Like for me, it was like a lot of noise, a lot of little kids. Like there's that age discrepancy. So like it was always like the kids were yelling and running around and there was friends over. And I'm just like, we need to calm down.
Do you know what's
So
funny? Do you know one thing that I see in you and her, and like this is not in a bad way at all,
no,
is
lay
that
it on me.
you, and obviously this is all perception because I do not know Kourtney Kardashian. This is all parasocially, but the need to have your own family unit be carried out a certain way.
Yes. I want to live a certain way. I want to be a certain way, regardless of like how different it is. And you know what else this makes me think of is like, I think sometimes that, and rightfully so, I think like some of my family members are like, God, Ashley's such a bitch. Like she's such a bitch. She's so controlling. Like she's got the boundaries and this, like she's such, not to put words in their mouth, but like I totally get why they would think that because that's how it comes off. I think some of these symptoms like come off as like, oh, like I'm different and I have different rules than you, different ways of life than you. And it's like, okay, girl, love you. Like we don't care. And I feel like that's how people react to Kourtney. And I don't like Kourtney. So this is very weird, but it's the truth. I really
Well, you
resonate with
cannot
it.
like her, but you can like understand some of it. Like, for some reason during this entire conversation, the scene that I keep thinking about right now, and where she leaves the group text because she feels like it's too negative. Like, and it's like her family group text. And I was like, what a savage mood. And I also love when they flash to the other siblings where Kendall's like, it's not a big deal. Like, what? She didn't like what was happening. So she left, like, whatever. And I'm like, she left the family group
Yeah. And everyone's perceptions of her leaving was different,
was
which like how much
different.
of that is based on their birth order? Like the chill
Right.
one versus the one who cares versus the one who's
Like,
sensitive. Like they all
Chloe
had
and Kim
different
were like, what the
feelings.
fuck? What do you mean you just left the group chat?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like that's totally I mean, I don't think I would leave like my family group chat. There's just not enough of us for that to be like worthy. Like there's a low amount that we can have a conversation in there and it's not chaotic. And so I don't totally agree with her decision, but I feel like, oh yeah, like
That was
that's
her boundary, though. She was like, you know what? I
yeah,
don't want to be a
that's
part of this
definitely
negativity. I don't want this negative energy in my space. She was like, so I'm going to remove myself from
that
the
was so
situation.
funny. That
But
was
yeah,
so
sorry, not to
funny.
that. For some reason, that's what was stuck in my head this whole time. We've been talking
Yeah.
about Courtney.
Just to say one more thing about her is, and I did a TikTok on this because I was watching the last season and there's a scene where it was like a party. It might have even been like
Was
Kim's
it
law school
Kim's? It was,
graduation.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
And Courtney wanted to carpool with Chloe, but Courtney was running super late and Chloe was like, I'm sorry, I'm not waiting for you. Like, I am helping to throw this party. Like, I have to be there at a certain time. It's our sister's graduation party. Like, you have to ride solo. And Courtney was like so incredibly mad and rude. And she was just like, I just don't understand, like, why you couldn't like wait. And it's like, when someone has offered you a ride and they say be ready at a certain time and you're not ready at a certain time, like, and you're not ready, that is not their problem.
I agree with
That
that.
is not older child behavior to me. That is not indicative of and I think that's why it bugged me so much because I was just like, "You know better, bitch. Like, be responsible." She allows, like, the boundaries and the control, like, it almost, like, supersedes common sense and decency, and I think that's why she, like, comes off rude sometimes, and frankly, this particular incident was rude. I rest my case.
I cannot promise to not be late because I'm late a lot. However, when somebody's waiting on me, I'm good in those situations.
Yeah, it's not so much the being late as the expectation that her, whether it was a
Sister should
friend or
wait for
whatever,
her.
it was, in this case, it was her sister, was already offering her a favor. And then she was like imposing on her by being like, oh, but I'm late or I don't want to leave that early. Bitch, you don't get to ask me a favor and then dictate like what time we leave. Like, I'm already doing you a favor by picking you up. Don't sit right with me. All right, middle children. I was a little surprised by this because in the birth order theory, this is sort of known as like the diplomat. And I have to be honest, I don't know. Watch, they're all going to come crawling out the woodwork. I don't feel like I know a lot of middle children.
Yeah, I actually have a few friends that are middle children, but it's so funny because when you talk about like people pleasing, when you talk about ambition, when you talk about thoughtful, like some of my friends that I would say are the most thoughtful are middle children.
Interesting. They're considered, in this theory, the most independent of the siblings, which I think is interesting. Ambitious, thoughtful, like you said, sociable, and peacemakers, which I think is why
Yeah.
they're labeled the diplomat. Middle children get a bad rap. Like, I even started the episode
Yeah.
today being like, middle children, are you okay? Middle children get a bad rap because they're sort of considered like, oh, they're sort of like, they're just floating in the middle. So maybe like they don't get as much or as much specialized attention as an older or a younger would.
I also know middle children like that, where you're
Okay.
like, "Oh," where you're like, "Oh, wait, are you the forgotten child?" Like, because you give off, like, forgotten
Mm.
child's energy.
The research suggests that middle children might believe that like they have less emotional or financial support from their parents than, let's say, their siblings do, and then as a result, middle children might experience a lower self-esteem or greater insecurity than their siblings. But that might not be the case if the middle child is like a different gender than their siblings, or if there's only a small age gap between siblings. Again, there's a lot of factors here, and we're not
So
even
many.
getting into the nature versus nurture of it all, because goddamn does
Right.
that have a giant impact on all of this. So again, taking it with a grain of salt, but like those are just some of the things that trickle down from the theory. So yeah, it's almost like they're experiencing some hurt feelings or feeling like they're floating in the middle, but they also are like super kind and thoughtful and ambitious, which is pretty cool.
Do you know what I think also happens with the middle child, too? They are both the oldest and the youngest. The middle child was the youngest until the youngest came along, and then they became an oldest to one of their siblings.
Especially if their older sibling left the house. Like you were saying, your sister
Yeah.
earlier, when you left to go to college, it was just her and then she
Yeah.
became an only. But for a middle
Yep.
child, they become the oldest.
Yeah.
Wow. Why is this like tripping me out so bad? I didn't even
I know, it's so funny.
I didn't do any edibles today, I promise. Yeah, that's really interesting. I wish there was, you know what? I feel we'll do a part 2 at some point because and maybe we'll have some sort of like expert on, or maybe we'll just have like a middle child on, a younger
Middle
child
child.
on to pick their brain. Yeah, because
Yeah.
now I'm wondering, yeah, like are there is there a deeper like plus up to that? Like, okay,
Yeah.
what happens then when the older sibling, is much older or goes away to college, and then what is that experience for that middle child now acting as older and having experienced being younger. Very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think is like laying into the traits we've gone through here, like what do you think is like a middle child quality that you have? Good or bad or both?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh my gosh. It's definitely not the peacemaker. I mean, I don't know why sociable is the one that jumps off the page the most,
It's
but
true. You're
I mean,
incredibly
I'm very
sociable.
You can put me in any kind of room. I will figure out how to talk to everybody and anybody. But I also think that's because I was a child that was around a lot of adults as an only child for like, on one side of my family for a decent amount of time.
Same. Did I might have asked this before. Like, were your parents' friends also having kids when they had you? Like, were you sort of like when you went to before your sister came along and you were at
Mhm.
family events and or parties or you went places with your parents, were there other little kids with you? Because as I've said in the past, that was not the case for me. My mom was the only one who had a kid. When my sister came along, all her friends started having kids.
For the majority of those formative years early, or if we just say before my sister came along, so before like I was almost 6, a lot of it was just me. It's funny because in some settings, I'm like the oldest, but then my parents started making friends with other folks who had kids that were like around my age, but a little older when I was little and like would play with like the neighborhood kids. And like, this is before I moved to Jersey. Like, from what my parents tell me, like those neighborhood kids were older.
So you're mostly around adults and older kids, if any.
What middle child trait do you think you have?
Well, yeah, not to sway negative, but when I think about my family dynamic, I would say like I have, and I could be wrong, right? We all have our insecurities, but I feel like I'm much more insecure than my sister, who is the middle child in our dynamic. Like, and that's not because of like the reasons stated here. Like, I don't feel like it stems from my parents' emotional or financial support. Like, it just is. Like, I feel like she is such a like
Your sister has a lot of confidence.
tons of confidence.
Mhm.
She's always like dancing and performing and and you know what's so funny is like I think that people who don't know my family, they just know me. Like a friend from, friend who hasn't met my
Yeah.
parents yet or, someone who I work with or whatever. I think they see me as that. But
Mhm.
then when you meet like my sister or like my mom, you're like, "Oh, they're the peacocks." Like it's not Ashley. So you can only imagine how much personality these bitches have. So I think that that's
Well,
also
I've
funny
met your sister, so I know she has a lot of
for the
personality.
listeners who
Yeah.
who don't know. Well, actually, I mean, technically you all met her on our episode about expressive art therapy, but she had her professional hat on. But
Right.
yeah, like I think that people who meet them and spend time with them are like, "Oh, okay, like Ashley's actually like I'm no wallflower, but like compared to them, I'm like I shrink." Not in a bad way. Just is
So
what it is.
interesting. I need to
Yeah.
see all 3 of you together.
Yeah, you need to come to, like, a family
I'm trying
party.
to listen, I've been trying to get an invite to that Connecticut summer party for so long.
I at the moment the next one happens, it's happening, you're coming. But, yeah, so I think, like, that's an interesting thing, and that's just, like, how I function within my family dynamic, and, yeah, if the birth order theory is labeling, potential low self-esteem as a middle child trait, well, then call me middle child-esque because I think that,
Yeah,
it's not debilitating, but it exists.
obviously my sister is not a middle child, but I do think my sister has more natural confidence than I do. Like,
Mm.
the way that I describe us a lot is, like, as to this day, and especially, like, when we were younger, if somebody came to me with something and it was something I didn't know how to do already, or if it was, like, trying something new, I'd be like, "I can't do this." Where my sister's initial first thought is, "Why can't I do this?"
Interesting. It's like an inherent yeah, I was like, "Oh, what does that mean, like, natural confidence?" But, yeah, it's sort of like her brain has the whole, like, cup half full theory. It's like her cup is half
Yes.
full when it comes to confidence versus half empty.
That's how I've always thought it, and it's actually funny because one of the things that when I looked up, like, when it's, like, a role reversal, so the youngest has a lot of oldest child traits and then, vice versa, what it said was it was like, "If you can't win, then I'm not doing it." And that is, like, very much how I
Wow.
am. Like, if you
Oh.
think that I can't do something, I'm not someone who's like, "I need to prove you wrong." I'm like, "Well, whatever."
You could say that that's confidence. Like, "I don't need to prove nothing
I
to you. Fuck it. I'm just not gonna do it."
I don't need your validation, but I didn't oh my god, that's funny, I didn't think about it through that lens at all. I kind of thought of it as like, what? Like, You don't think I can do it? So, like, whatever, I won't do it then. Yeah, like, I am not somebody who feels the need to prove people wrong.
You know what I'm also thinking about, just to like get super meta on this? I wonder, depending on your parents' birth order, how are you impacted? Like, I
Yes.
might be an eldest
Yeah, I
daughter,
think
but
about
my
this.
mom is the youngest. So how does that shape and change her parenting? And like, like what's that ripple
Yes.
effect? Who knows? Who
I have
knows?
thought about this because my dad's the oldest, and my dad is significantly older than his his 2 younger siblings, and
Mm.
my mom's the 3rd. My mom has 2 older siblings, and my mom's one of 7, so, there's
Oh wow.
that's a whole
Oh,
'nother dy
yeah, big
that's a whole 'nother
families.
dynamic.
Kardashians are a big family. There aren't just 3, one we could put in each bucket. There are some that are sort of in like the younger middle versus older middle situation. Kim is technically like the middle in this example. So she's someone who is super high achieving. She's attention commanding. She's adaptable, and she's a social strategist. I don't mean that as social media, but you certainly could take it as social media. But I think like that really sticks out to me because especially these last 5 to 10 years or so, like the amount of businesses that she's inserted herself into,
Mhm. And just
she's kind of like a
endeavors that she's
chameleon.
done.
She
Yeah.
can she sets her mind to something and she fucking does it. She wants to be an actress, she wants to own a clothing line, she wants to be a lawyer. I know that she struggled with passing the bar, but now now she has to. Like now it's like she got to do it. Like at this point she has to prove it to if not everyone else, to herself, which could, inevitably or invariably be because sort of her middle childness is that high achieving sort of like wanting to prove herself and kind of stand out mentality.
I would love to look at Kim and Chloe in isolation. Now that they're older, they have a lot of similarities in the way that they operate through the family.
I don't know if I'm labeling them correctly. I have Chloe and Rob, not to forget Rob, as the younger middle. So they're middle, but they're on the younger end of it because technically there was Courtney, Kim, Chloe, and Rob in their insular family. And then Kendall and Kylie came along in sort of their stepfather, family. Not that they can consider each other half siblings, but like that is the fact. So I kind of have them as the younger middle. So they hold a little bit of the middle, but they hold a little bit of the younger too. So when we get into younger, we'll talk about them. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think she gives older energy in general, but like not in a bad way. Like she to me is like like if I had to say who would be like the next matriarch after Chris, I would say Chloe.
Agreed. I think Chris would say that. I mean, listen, they live next door to each other.
I know.
I think Chris is literally like training her next
Like
matriarch.
setting the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's setting it up. And I think Chloe's sliding right in there. I could go on and on about Chloe. Okay, so youngest, I guess, is sort of categorized as the chaos agent. So this
Yeah.
is charming, social, babied, rule breaker, attention getter. They might look for ways to stand out from their older siblings, create their own unique position in the family. They might try to gain attention in different ways. Extroverted, fun loving, a little more lighthearted, unique. But they also might feel like they have to compete with their older siblings. So they might feel like they're a little bit at a disadvantage, just to give a little balance to the pros and cons. I think a term that often comes up for the youngest children from their older siblings is, well, were my parents tired by the time they came around? Like, what happened? I think that youngest children have some of those qualities because I think a large part of it is like maybe their siblings already made all the mistakes and they've seen it happen. Maybe their parents were super strict with their older siblings and then, yeah, it got a little tired and like the rules kind of got a little more relaxed when the younger sibling came along. So I feel like that's a big part of it. I don't know. I know a few youngers, and obviously I have a youngest sibling.
It's so funny. I relate to so many of the characteristics in I mean the fact that it's the chaos agent
I
in
feel
and of
you've labeled
itself,
yourself
like
that on
that
this
I mean, like,
podcast.
that's what my sister would tell you. Like,
Yeah.
charming, social breaker. I don't think of myself as doing things for attention, but I always like to be like one step over the line. I
For
am
sure.
loud. I mean, I was a theater kid. You know what I mean? So it's like some of those traits are just in me innately. The only thing is like I definitely like was not babied, not at all. You said something on an episode a few weeks ago. Oh my god, it's when we were talking about age of attraction and you said everybody has to remember that like your dad is just a boy and your mom is just a girl.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I think about with parents and their oldest children. Like you and I, they were doing it for the first time. They had never seen any of this
Yes.
before. They didn't know any better. They were nervous, you know, like, so it makes sense why siblings that come after the oldest, like your parents are a little more lax because they're I've been through this before. Like, I've done the school system
Yeah.
thing. I've, like, taken my kid out in public and they've, like, survived. Like, you know,
Yes.
it's not so foreign.
Yeah, I have a specific example of just that. There was a bit of an incident when I was in high school where I got alcohol poisoning. And I've mentioned it like lightly on this
Yeah.
podcast, and we'll get into the full story one day. But it was me and a few friends, and obviously, like, we got in trouble. I was the one who got alcohol poisoning, and I was in the most trouble. Like, I was grounded for months. Like, it was, like,
Mhm.
total lockdown, like, batten down the hatches type of thing. And it was, like, one of those things where, like, all the parents met the next day to, like, discuss.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think that there were some parents that were a little more chill vibes, and those were the parents whose kid involved was the youngest. Whereas in my family, I was the oldest. So I think that there was and listen, everyone in the situation, like, is right and entitled to their own opinion and the way they want to raise their kids. But I think that um, there was a clear difference to me as one of the participants of like the way that the parents reacted to their kids. For the parents who had children before the one involved, it was a little bit more like, hey, this isn't cool, but also like, I've been here before. Like, my
Yeah.
my other kids have screwed up before. It happens. They're kids. And my mom is sort of coming from the perspective of like, well, this is my first time I'm doing this. Like, this was scary. I don't like this. I don't condone this behavior. And both of those sides are right. True. And my mom always has said to me, like, this is the first time I'm doing this. Like, this is the first time I've had a 33-year-old too. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how this is
Yeah.
supposed to go. Like, that's
Yeah.
fair. And I love that, like, you have a different experience and, like, you resonate more with the youngest child because it allows us to sort of question the theory and, like, flip it on its head. But I'm curious if there were rules that existed in your house that maybe when you came home from college, you realized were not being enforced with your sister. Was there anything like that?
Nothing that stands out too much. Like, I have always said it's like my sister has a better head on her shoulders. Okay, if she had less rules, I don't think it's because they were, like, just more chill. I think if she had less rules, it's because my parents were like, "Oh, no, she's fine. She's
Like,
got
she
it. Like, we
deserves
don't
it.
we don't have to we don't have to worry about that." My sister wasn't stealing alcohol from my parents like I was,
Yeah.
in high school. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
I had a friend like that who was like her older siblings like were not terrible by any means, but like they had their moments and they had a good age gap between them, and like her mom was super chill with her cuz she truly gave them nothing to worry about. You know?
Yeah,
Like it was like we don't need to
that's how I feel.
that's why. We don't need to rein them in because there's nothing to rein in. Like they've learned from their
Right.
siblings.
So what was more lax on your end? Because clearly there was something
I
there.
mean, lots of things. Leniency for sure on like chores and responsibilities around the house. Like I think that's just part of being the older sibling was like because I was oldest, like I was capable of things that my younger siblings weren't capable
Mhm.
of at their young ages. So I sort of took on the majority of the household chores and responsibilities, whereas they sort of like didn't have as many. My parents, I've mentioned this, were like super strict with me. Like I really was not allowed out of the house much until I was like 16. Don't get me wrong. I was social and I was allowed to have sleepovers and I was allowed to go out with friends, but like there were a lot of expectations around, okay, like you have to get this and this done before you go out of the house. Like all my friends know, like Ashley's parents are the strict parents, and my friends now look at my parents now, or I guess, you know, when my siblings were teenagers and they were like, what the hell's going on around here? Like even my friends were like, what the hell? What the hell's
That's
going on around
funny.
here? Ashley wasn't allowed to do this. Ashley wasn't allowed to do that. There was also like more of an open door policy with my siblings and like their comings and goings and their friends. So like my parents always had the, welcome people over, like definitely an open door policy in terms of, hey, I'd rather you be at our house than like at someone else's doing whatever.
Mhm.
But there's just like a much more open door policy with like my siblings' friends. Even to this day, like they're coming in and out all the time. Someone's sleeping over, someone's eating in the pantry, someone's staying over for dinner, someone's sleeping in the backyard. Like there's just like always like a flurry.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit more like, ask permission when I
Yeah.
was a kid and like check in all the time, ask permission. Social media use, I wasn't allowed to have that until I was 18. Like as in when you leave for college you can do it, but as so long as you live in this house, you're not going to have social media. And I definitely broke that rule and got in big trouble. That was like the second thing. That was like the only those two incidences, like alcohol poisoning, social media, the two like biggest moments I got in trouble because typical oldest child, I was a rule follower, I was responsible,
Yeah.
but I had those moments. But I think because of the strictness, I that's why I had those incidents. Whereas like my siblings, it was a little more lax. Um, but yeah, like I think that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Shit
Yeah.
happens. But I don't look at my little brother who's the youngest in my immediate family, and um I don't connect him with this description at all, the chaos agent, or
Really?
even like, yeah, I mean, he's definitely charming. He's definitely social. He's definitely was babied a little more, but he's so not a rule breaker. He's so not an attention seeker.
Yeah.
He's not elbowing his way through us to like get the attention. If anything, I have a lot of empathy for him because, and I think this is where the gender layer comes in,
Yeah.
having two older sisters with
Who are
big
loud.
personalities,
Yeah.
not to mention a mom with an equally big personality as the sisters, like, that's a lot of big female energy. Like, the poor kid can't
Yeah.
get a word in edgewise. Like, he
Yeah.
couldn't even if he wanted to. It's like we
Yeah.
never shut the fuck up, the poor guy. So I actually have a lot of
Yeah.
empathy for him and his position in the family because we take up a lot of energetic space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about that too, but more like with my extended family, like on my dad's side, like a lot of us have big personalities. And it's like, if you sit down at a dinner table with us, like nobody is going to like hand you a microphone or a stick and say, it's your time to talk.
Right.
Like you better
Get
be
in there.
jumping in, get in there.
That kinda reminds me, I don't know why, that scene in Love Story, which can you believe I have not finished?
I can't, I haven't watched that last episode because I know what happened. I
I
haven't
am, like,
watched it.
white knuckling, holding back on watching episode 9. I can't do it.
I
I can't
know.
do it, but I will.
I haven't been able to watch it
I
either.
I will get there, but it reminds me of that scene where she goes and has dinner at his sister's house. Or is that the sister? No, when they go to like the Cape or something and they have the
Yes.
round
Yeah.
table and they're all talking politics and whatever. And as much as I thought like, oh, that's like kind of fucked up, like that's so intimidating, it was sort of like, well, no, that's the kind of family that they have. And
That's
it's
the
sort of like, hey,
dynamic.
get into the conversation, take a seat at the table or get out. Bringing it to the Kardashians, I mentioned Chloe and Rob, so, like, they're younger middle, so apparently they're more like, and I think this is more Chloe, emotional caretaker, mediator, humor role,
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
feel like
Well, I think
that's her.
Rob is funny. Rob is
Yeah. Oh,
definitely,
for sure.
and then you go to the babies.
Right, and they are more obviously steeped more in that younger child, so they're more protected, they're more baby, and I think we saw that, with Bruce in the early days of the Kardashians. Um, I think Kylie has more of that chaotic influence. Kendall's a little more even keel. They're very like interested in like freedom, like reinvention, which I think when
Yeah.
especially when you're the younger siblings and you've got four on top of you,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're maybe trying to elbow in and, like, be a little different from the rest, and then, of course, I grew up under less strict parenting, which I think that Bruce was, and I realize their name's Caitlin now, but I'm referring to Bruce back then in the early days, was, despite him having older children, was, like,
Uh-huh.
was trying, like, he was trying to be strict with them. And then it was like, but the other, like, because of, like, the other older siblings, like, it just was, like, never gonna
Not
happen.
gonna
Like, they
happen.
were they were never gonna have the strictness that I think a typical, like, older sibling would. I wanna sort of close out the layers of older, middle, youngest by asking your own dynamic, because you've kind of said it's a little different in your situation, that,
Mhm.
like, maybe, like, an attribute that's, like, not serving you. This is something that, like, I wish I could do away with. Like, for me, it's, like,
Um,
the control. Like, I'm like, "I need to chill."
yeah,
I never will,
I think
but
I I think for me, I think it's the like, for me, it's definitely, like, my emotional, like, difficulties, like, I hate how they get in the way, and then I hate how they, like, cloud some of the experience that, like, my sister gets with having an older sister. And listen,
Mhm.
she has never said anything to me. So, like,
I
I don't
bet.
want people to think that, like, she's out here giving me a hard time because she's not. Like, she's so good. And I don't know if you feel this way ever, and I don't know if it's, like, the same, but, like, sometimes when I lean on her, I feel so guilty,
Well,
like,
that's the
about
older
it.
sister in you.
Right, right. Like, it's like I'm always a shoulder for her, I'm always there for her, but, like, it's like the second it, like, has to it flips and I'm like, I'm like, "Oh," like, and I apologize. I'm like, "Oh," like, and I get, like, self-deprecating about it, and I think that that's something
Yeah.
that, like, she's if she feels strongly about it, she doesn't say that to me. Like, she handles it, like, with grace and, like, she's so supportive and, like, my sister has always kinda been an old soul, and, like, she's
Mm.
just like, there's something about her that I find very grounded, and, as the agent of chaos, I don't have that.
I think that's beautiful, because I think that, traditionally, and I can only speak for older child because I am one, is, like, there is a little bit of loneliness at the top. Like, who do I go to? Who do I
Mhm.
lean on? Who do I ask questions to? Yes, you have your parents, you have your friends, but, like, who is that built-in person that you can sort of lean on? And I think inherently that is very older sister of you to even feel like that, to
Yeah.
recognize it and to reflect on it, and even to feel a little guilt about it, is like, only an older sibling, only a big sister would do that, and
Totally.
then all of a sudden, like, feel, like, remorse about it, or feel like you have to apologize, and the reason that she's probably not saying anything is because she probably doesn't feel that way. It's just you in your older sister
Yeah.
mindset being like, "Oh, I'm the one who should be taking care of her," and vice versa. But something, I don't know if I've said it explicitly to my younger siblings, but something I've definitely thought about is, like, at this point, like, we are becoming adults together, and the age
Right,
difference is
yeah.
that different, and I think that because it can be a little lonely in the older sibling position, I think that it's time now, especially in our 30s, for you and I. Like, I think it's okay to lean on them a little bit more, because guaranteed they leaned on you in a lot of ways that maybe you can't even, like,
Yeah.
articulate. It just happened. They had you as a buffer, they had you as a cushion. You didn't really have that. I'm not saying, "Oh, well, it's so sad being the older sibling." I'm just stating
No.
it is what it is, and I think that it's okay to mix up the roles here a little bit, and maybe start leaning into some of those other traits, knowing that, like, hey, like, they can rise to the occasion too.
Wow, great way to, like, close that segment out.
Thank you so much. It just came naturally. You
There you
inspired me.
go.
Yeah. On that note, let's transition over to our next segment. It's a little silly. It's a little slutty. It's the millennial mouthfuls. This is where we talk about what we love, what we hate, what we're watching, what we're doing, what we've been up to, what we want to gripe about. And I feel like I owe the listeners an update on my potential BV situation.
Oh, potential.
The potential. So I texted Alexis on Wednesday or whenever my appointment was. And I was like, yup, bitch got the BV. Like, I got it. I got some antibiotics. The doctor was pretty sure. It happens. No reason for it. She
Yeah.
was like, hey, it just happens. She recommended a couple of things. She said, here, she prescribed me an antibiotic, took a little swab just in case. And I went on my merry little way and I filled my prescription and I'm almost done with that prescription. And here we are. But then my test results came back and they were negative. So,
Oh.
and she hasn't been in touch. I wanted to give her a few days. She's a busy lady. My doctor.
In a few days. You haven't heard from her in a few days and you got test results back? I feel like you need to message in the portal. I feel like you need to send
Well,
a message in the portal.
and this is my cutoff point. I definitely will now that it's been, so tomorrow will be 1 week. Actually Thursday will be 1 week since I got the results. So yeah, I think it's
What the
totally
hell?
okay to message her. And it's not like I was afraid to message her or anything. Like I was just like, I genuinely wanted to
Yeah,
give her
being
a second. Cause
respectful.
sometimes they reach out and say,
They
hey,
do.
now that I've gone over everything, blah, blah, blah. And who knows, she might've said, I want to order additional testing. Like I wanted to give her a second, but
Right.
I haven't heard back. So I'm going to reach out. I think there's also like, again, there's nothing like crazy going on that I'm like, oh my God, there's
Do you
something's
feel
really
better?
wrong.
Wait, like question, like after
Well,
being on the
well,
antibiotics,
it
do you
well,
feel
it
better?
got complicated because then I got my period. So there's a lot
Oh,
going on down there
a
right
lot going
now, and
on.
I can't
Yeah.
really tell. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be like a good week, I feel like, before I feel like,
Yeah.
okay, let me like check
You can
things
like
out down
tell.
there and like see
Yeah.
how it's feeling. So yeah, it's all gotten a little complicated. So I know that she's gonna ask me that too, and I don't really have an answer. And I still have 2, 3 more doses of my antibiotics.
I mean,
So
finish out your prescription.
yeah. Oh, 100%. At the very least, I have an antibiotic. It's going to, cut out whatever is going on in my body. And certainly if it resurfaces or never goes away, I will flag it. But I'm going to message her either way and just be like, what are your thoughts? I have a feeling she'll be like, listen, I only tested you for XYZ strains. Like it could be this,
Yeah.
Or she says,
I
come
guess.
back. We need more testing, but we'll see.
Right.
I'm not that worried about it because I'm on the
Yeah.
antibiotics, but yeah, that was kind of my thing.
Well, I guess we're still staying tuned.
Yeah. I mean, listen, guys, I'm not going to give you a diatribe about my vagina
Well, you were going to
anymore.
give,
So,
I'm
but
invested in this. So you have to at least tell
yeah,
me.
I just feel like if you're like real, yeah, my friend Alexis, I'm going to let her know. But if like the listeners are really interesting, slide into my DMs. I'll tell you what the results end up being. Okay. But I'm probably not going to drag this on for much longer. But what I will drag on for a little longer is the topic of vaginas in general. Have you ever heard of the term scooping out?
Considering I thought you were talking about a bagel, I don't think so.
No, has nothing to do with a bagel, though a scooped bagel, if you like it,
No,
fine.
I think that's dumb. Don't scoop your
It
bagels.
can be, it's a little bit of sacrilege, but that's just my personal opinion. So I heard of this term called scooping out, which apparently is something you can ask your gynecologist to do when you're on your period. It's basically where they scoop out the menstruation to assist it along. Because think about it, your period is the shedding of your
Yeah.
the shedding of your uterine walls.
Yeah.
So basically they can like go in there and take like a little spatula and scoop out like the blood that's just kind of pooling and sitting. It's not going to get rid of your period, but it's going to help it move a little faster along versus sort of like bleeding for the course of like 5 to 7 days. Is that fucking crazy or what?
I'm all set.
Me too.
But I will say this. I also have a bitch ass period. And for most of my life, I have. If I was somebody who had really painful periods, like honestly, maybe. Like maybe it would
I don't
be
know that
something
it
that I
gets rid
would,
of the pain.
but if it's moving it along faster,
It's more like your uterine walls have already shed. It's pooling in there and dripping out. Sorry, this is graphic. Like, we'll just get rid of the drippage for you. I don't think it takes away the
but what if you have a
hemorrhaging. I don't think it
heavier,
takes
what
away
if
the
you have a,
cramps.
maybe not the cramps, but if you have a heavier flow? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's probably fucking fantastic. So
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I thought, and this is like one of those unwritten female rules that I might find is not true. I thought you couldn't go get your annual exam if you were on your period. Like, there's been moments where it's fell on the week of my period and I've had to reschedule. But
Did your doctor tell you to reschedule?
no one's I just thought that you couldn't go get your annual if you were on your period. Because I was like, how would that work?
I've never gone when I've had like a full on period. But again, remember, I have a bitch ass period. But when
Yeah.
I've been like towards the end and there's like barely anything, like it's just like light, I've gone.
I didn't know that you could do that. So the reason that I bring it up is because I've seen a couple videos of people. Well, the first video I saw about scooping out was in regards to I went to go get my annual exam and I said to the OB, "Hey, while you're down there, can you scoop me out?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And that's when everyone in the comments was like, "What?" So I'm not the only one who like didn't know about this. Clearly, you didn't know
I
about
need
it
to
either.
look into
But I
this.
but I was like, two crazy things have happened here. Number one, she went to the gynecologist on her period, didn't know you could do that. Number two, asked the gynecologist to like give her a facelift while she was down there. I don't know. If anyone else has heard
Sorry.
about this, please let me know.
I literally
To me, it's the equivalent of like having like a pimple or something and going into the dermatologist and asking them to like pop it for you. That's what it feels like to me. Like it feels like a little bit like obviously it's self-serving. It's a
okay.
little bit indulgent, self-indulgent, but whatever. If it works for you and your doctor's willing.
According to a quick Google search,
This is going to be embarrassing because I did no research on this. You're going to tell me it's not a thing.
so no. It is a thing.
Okay.
However, on a first look, it's saying that well, one, it's not a routine procedure. Apparently,
Yeah.
it's extremely painful, and
Oh.
there's there's the significant risk of infection, uterine scarring, and
Oh. Fuck that.
perforation. But there is something here says that it can be confused with cleaning the vagina. A doctor might remove accumulated blood from the vagina, but this does not stop the uterine lining from shedding. And
Mhm.
then a D and C, which is a legitimate surgical procedure to remove uterine tissue, but it's only performed for medical reasons like miscarriage, heavy bleeding, or removing polyps, not to shorten a routine period.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I would say consult your gynecologist for safe hormonal management options.
Thank you. Just so we don't get sued.
But
Appreciate
it
that.
does it does say that this is a TikTok trend. So like
Oh, Jesus. That's so embarrassing. So it's a thing, it sounds like, but it's like not a thing that one should do without cause. That's
and
what
it
I'm
should
taking
not be
away. But
attempted at home.
do not attempt this at home. Please consult your physician. No further questions, Your Honor. Okay, moving
But on
on.
that note,
Please stop. Don't let me talk anymore.
so for our next topic, it's not an exciting one, but it's something I need to talk about because you are a night owl. You can naturally stay awake late. And the reason I wanted to
Oh.
talk to you about this is because mere hours ago, my husband was like, you need to get it together. You need to stop falling asleep so early. And as I said to Ashlie before we started recording, I may have fallen asleep at like 7:30 p.m. last night on the couch. And this is a regular occurrence for me. It happens a lot and it's been happening consistently. And he's like, there's things you can do. He's like, sit up, don't lay down. And I'm like, but I get sleepy. Like I sit on the couch to watch something and I get sleepy. And I'm like, but you don't get sleepy?
But what's the issue? Are you then like also sleeping until 7 a.m. the next morning? Are you sleeping 12 hours? Like, are you
Oh,
missing
totally.
things? Wow.
Well, I mean, I'm not
But what's
missing
the
anything,
actual?
but
But yeah, right. So what's the issue? Are you missing appointments? Are you telling him that you're gonna go out and then you don't go out? Like, what's the issue in sleeping a lot?
well, sometimes I'll tell him I'll cook dinner and then I sleep.
Okay, you should do what you say you're gonna do, but you're entitled to a miss here and there. Okay.
But also,
Um.
sometimes I think I said this to you before. Like sometimes I do want to like stay up and like have a movie night, and it's like so hard for me. Like we have to start our movie so
I
early because I
know.
can't.
As someone who has trouble falling asleep, I don't want to like negate you in any way because I think that like the ability, like it's almost like if your body is telling you to sleep, you should sleep, you know?
Right, like
However,
your body's just awake.
right, like and listen, and there are tools I can implement to help me fall asleep, but I don't necessarily know that you need to implement tools to prevent you from falling asleep.
Oh, and for anybody
Unless
who says drink a cup of coffee, if you think that I have not tried that.
yeah, unless you think there's like keeping into the medical family here for the millennial mouthfuls, like unless you think there's like a medical issue where you are sleeping a lot and yet you don't feel rested, that is usually not great. But it also could be a sign. I mean, I'm not a medical professional, but I feel like that's usually a question I get, like from the
Yeah.
doctor is like, okay, like, are you sleeping enough and do you feel rested after you sleep?
I think I'm a sleepy person.
That's okay.
I
G's a
think
sleepy
I
person. There's nothing wrong with
like,
him. He's just sleepy.
I think that I just can't be awake for as many hours in the day as some people can.
You're not a recluse. Like you go out, you're social, you take care of your responsibilities. Like it's not like this is like having a negative impact on maybe it's having a negative impact on your husband, but it's
My
not
my
having
husband.
but it's not having a negative impact elsewhere. Yeah, I don't really see a problem here, but if your desire is to stay up later, I don't know because I have the opposite problem.
But then also Friday, I stayed up until, like, after midnight, no issue. Once in a blue moon, I can, but, like, that is not like, if I'm
Yeah.
in the house, I am asleep, like, pretty early. I guess you're saying that there's not something technically wrong with me or that if there is, I should seek a medical professional, and I think that's
That's
accurate.
exactly that's exactly correct. And I think like the key word here that like you led with is like naturally awake. Like there are people who can stay awake, but like they're they're not naturally awake. They're pounding Alanis, they're drinking Red Bulls, they're drinking coffee, they're doing coke. Like that's not
Right.
naturally awake. Um just like you're not unnaturally going to sleep. Like you're not taking anything or doing anything that's making you fall asleep. Like your body just wants to be asleep. And
Sleep.
and I will leave it with one question. Do you think that cuz you said it's do you think like you maybe have sleep apnea or something? So like the sleep you are getting just isn't enough because it's not quality sleep?
I got tested for it a few years ago, and I had it's, like, very mild.
Well, shit.
Um,
All right.
you know what it is too? I also think I enjoy sleep. Like, I think I just like sleep too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we said it a few weeks ago, right? Like you are someone who views like sleeping that is like personal time, whereas people like Biggie and I, which we talked about when I was there, is that we don't see that as personal time. Like we want to stay awake because we have like FOMO about like spending time with
You wanna enjoy
ourselves. Like
your
we
time,
want to watch
yeah.
TV, we want to take a shower, we want to read a book, we want to do so, because that is our time. Once we go to sleep, that's like recharge time. That's not like, ooh, good, comfy, yay time.
Well, alright, we'll see what happens, I guess.
All right. Our final topic for Millennial Mouthfuls is once again related to the Real Housewives. I am currently doing a Real Housewives of New Jersey rewatch. And there is something about those early days of Ranj that are so comforting to me. And I haven't ever been able to quite pinpoint it. Like, is it that it's the Northeast, right? Like I'm a New Yorker originally. It's New Jersey, so it feels comforting. It feels like home. Like, is it because majority of them are Italian and like I'm half Italian and like I resonate with like the familial culture? Is it the accents? Like, is that familiar to me? Because a lot of my family has those accents, and like, like, is that why it's so comforting? I don't quite know, but being 33 and the place I am in my life and rewatching it now, what I'm finding comforting about it right now is that they're housewives. And when I say housewives, I don't mean they're the real houses in New Jersey. I mean they are housewives. They don't have careers outside of the home, at least not in the early stages of the show.
Mhm.
They cook for their family, they care for their children, they keep a beautiful, clean home. They, spend quality time with their kids during the day. They go out on date nights with their husbands at night. Like there is, and I'm not saying like, ooh, housewives have it all, but like it's a little foreign for me to be like envious of that. That's just never a feeling I've had before. And the feeling,
Oh
to
my
be
god,
clear, is
really?
not motherhood. I don't wanna be a mother. I
Yes.
haven't crossed that
Yeah.
threshold yet, but there is something about, like, just being a homemaker that I'm like,
Yeah.
God, like, I'd be really good at that.
Honestly, I think this goes back into something that we've talked about like a few times here is that like, you know, you don't always want to be on the grind in the same way. Like you're not I just think you're particularly in a phase of your life where like hustle culture is not
Yeah.
appealing to you. And like you're
No.
watching, obviously this is a TV show, but it's like you're watching these people have beautiful lives and like nobody's talking about a boardroom, nobody's talking about the next meeting they're running to, nobody's talking about like climbing the corporate ladder. Like it's people just like you're seeing people like enjoy what's like their beautiful lives.
Yeah.
I think that's what's calling to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and, like, some of them they still have hobbies and interests and go out with their friends and, like, do all the things that I value, but they're not necessarily, like, ego driven by having a career and having be that be, like, the center of their universe, and I think that old me, I guess, like, in a way, like, had a judgment for housewives,
mhm.
and I apologize for that to those who are listening. But I think as I've gotten older and matured, that judgment has just completely left the building. If anything, it's something to aspire to.
I know you and I had definitely talked about this. Like, I know, like, right after I graduated college, I was like, I would never be a housewife. I would be too bored. And
Yeah.
like, as somebody who like was laid off, like,
Yeah.
I was not bored. Like,
You
I
fill
kept
your
myself
days.
busy. Like, you know how to fill a day, you
Yeah, and I
know?
think, you know what?
So
I am already taking care of the home and cooking and cleaning. Do I do it all myself? Of course not. But, like, I am already doing it. Like, how much more fulfilling would it be if I could just do that and not, like, be like I've like, at this point in this very moment of my life, I feel like I have, like, 5 buckets and they're all, like, maybe half full, not even. Wouldn't it be nice to just have a few buckets that are full?
I agree.
Just
I
saying.
totally agree. I talk
Yeah.
about this all the time. Well,
Cool.
I guess for me, it's like I'd rather be happy and fulfilled than like feel like I'm constantly like maybe chasing something that like I'm not gonna get. Or I just want to be happy and fulfilled. I don't want to always be on. I don't want to constantly be chasing. Like be happy with what you have.
Right, like there's something about always being on the up leveling train
Yeah,
that is exhausting.
it is exhausting.
Just because you are a homemaker doesn't mean you can't up level in certain things. You can have personal goals, you can have financial goals, you can have emotional goals. Like you can still have all those things. It just doesn't always need to be oh, lost my voice. Doesn't always need to be tied to a career. I'm losing my voice, so clearly I've been talking too long. So that said, we're going to wrap it up here. If you want more of our daily chaos, hot takes, and semi-responsible wisdom, please follow us on social at the Millennial Matriarch Pod on Instagram. You can also follow me and Alexis individually. I am at Millennial Mind of Ash. Alexis is at the_millennial_matriarch. We're both on TikTok and Instagram, serving questionable decisions, comforting truths, and the occasional, wait, am I the drama moments? For more episodes of the Millennial Matriarch, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Substack, and on YouTube. We ask that you rate, review, and subscribe. Until next time, drink some water, trust your gut, call your siblings if you have them, and remember, you're the matriarch of your own fucking castle. Act like it. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
Bye.